Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I am going to show you how to copy a t-shirt and turn it into a sewing pattern. So when you're sewing, it can be really hard to get a good fit on clothes. I mean, sewing something and putting it together is one thing, but getting something that fits you well can be challenging. So this video was born because we all have our favorite shirt, our favorite item of clothing, and sometimes companies stop making them. And you know, I have t-shirts with holes in them that I just love wearing. Okay, so this is how you copy it and turn it into a good pattern. I will use classic pattern making techniques that I was taught in fashion school and show you how to make a good pattern so you can recreate your favorite clothes. Okay, I hope you like this type of tutorial and that you feel encouraged to create your own patterns and just, you know, be creative with what you have. You don't have to buy a whole bunch of patterns to make clothes that fit you well or that you enjoy wearing. So please like, comment, subscribe, and do all of that YouTube magic if you're so inclined. But yeah, let's get to it. Okay, here are the supplies you're going to need. A ruler, a tracing wheel, pins, optional is a French curve, and a pencil. And then you want some kind of paper to trace your garment. This is dotted pattern paper from Mood. I bought a whole roll. It's actually a pretty good price there. This is paper from Home Depot. It's under the painters section. So this is a good one. It's also affordable. And you could also use just wrapping paper. I like to get the gridded kind, and sometimes you can find it at the dollar store. So those are affordable. That's an affordable option. You could also just take printer paper and like tape it together. Okay, use what you got. And the other thing you want is a large piece of cardboard or poster paper. So this is one that I use a lot. So there's that. And then of course your garment. This is a t-shirt and we will be tracing a t-shirt this time. Okay. Okay. So you're gonna lay this over your cardboard or your poster board. Okay, so you want to take your shirt and flip it inside out, and you're going to trace the front or the back. I'm starting with the back, and I'm just folding it in half, making sure to line up the seams like this, and that it's nice and as straight as you can get it. You want to find the center of the fabric or the shirt, the middle of the shirt. Okay. So you do that, finesse it a little bit until you're pretty sure it's at the center. Okay. All right, so what you can do is match up the seams like this and then find the center and then lay it out like this. So it's nice and straight, or as straight as you can get, because you'll notice that the fabric isn't gonna be perfectly straight. Okay, so we match those. Then I like to line up the shirt with one of the lines on the paper. So that's when I'll take a pin, and then you can just kind of pin that down. Okay, and then over here you want to kind of do the same. They're matched. Okay, and then also make sure that these are pretty much lined up. And then don't sweat it if it's not like perfect, because it's not going to be. We'll true it up after we trace it. Okay, so what I do is I put pins in these points, like the ends into the hem and then where the arm size starts. And here, they don't need to stay lined up too much. We're just gonna focus on this one side. Okay. Okay. Oh, and then I'll do one more over here. Okay. So what we're going to do is trace the perimeter. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna use the tracing wheel to trace the shirt. And be very careful with this. They can be very sharp. Okay. And we're going to go for the actual seam line. And then we're going to add the seam allowance and the hem allowance. So let's go ahead and start here on the bottom. And you're just gonna push it down. Okay. The center might be a little tricky because it's just folded, but you just go ahead and trace like right next to the edge, just like that. Okay. And sometimes when it becomes, it gets a little tough to go through all the layers of the fabric. I'll just kind of pinch it down. Pinch. But don't go back and forth because then you'll end up with several lines of dots and tracing, and that'll get a little confusing when you're trying to draw your actual seam line. Okay. So here you'll notice I'm tracing on the actual seam, not on the outside, because that's the seam allowance. Oops. And there are a lot of layers here because it has a little binding. Okay. Okay, so let's take that off and see how we did. And actually, I want to check one more thing here where the actual seam is. Yeah, it's actually like right here. This will help when we figure out the neckband. Basically, what I notice here is that this is covering the actual seam, and I just added another little trace. Okay. All right, so now you should be able to see. Ah, I forgot a line. Okay, if that happens, no big deal. Okay, just line it back up. Just like that. Go. And then you just line this up. We're really sewing here. That's what Emerald used to say. We're really cooking here. Anybody watch Emerald? I miss his cooking show. Okay, anyway. So just go through the other side. Bam. Bam, bam, bam. All right, so now let's true this up. All right, where's my pencil? Where's my pencil? Okay, so now what do we do with these dots, right? We are going to true up the pattern, and the center front or center back of the pattern is always straight. It's always a right angle. So I am going to draw a line of best fit from the uppermost corner to the bottom, okay? If you're not getting all the dots, that's okay. The point is to get the shape that you want, okay? And these are right angles, so you want to make sure that this is 90 degrees. So just line it up and make sure it's straight, okay? And over here, you want to do a right angle as well for the first 1/2 inch of your trace. So the first 1/2 inch. And then you'll just go ahead and use the French curve for the rest. But let me do the shoulder first. Again, you do that line of best fit. You're not going to get all the dots on this, which is fine. And then I'm going to do another 1/2 inch here. And now you're going to use these points right here as a guide to draw your neckline. Okay. And the point is to try to keep the right angles at the corners. But it's okay if you don't get the whole 1/2 inch on the actual curve. See? Okay. And then you do the same. We're going to go up a 1/2 inch on the bottom here as well, keeping it straight. And then you do it here as well. You want your right angle. You can just do a 1/4 inch, that's okay too. And then, okay, and then for your arm side, and you do the same thing, you find your best line, and then you draw it. I don't like that. Yeah, because we're leaving that out. Okay, so if that happens and you want to redraw it, it's okay. Let me show you how we do it. So I have more dots here and not as many here. So we'll draw 2 curves, but I want to try to keep this angle here too. So I'm gonna just kind of move the French curve around until it's kind of there. Okay, and then we'll kind of just adjust it a little bit. Okay, that's good. And then the line that you don't want, you just go like that. Or erase it. Okay. Okay, and then there's this one. I want to show you something else because you totally could just wing this. Because then you're just kind of drawing it in. Okay. If I didn't have a ruler, which I do, but it's hanging somewhere, there's another ruler you could use. Use the hip curve, for instance. Or if, well, you could make it boxy too, but we want to copy our shirt, obviously. Okay, so that's that. It's all nice and straight. And let's go ahead and add some seam allowance. So on the bottom, if you look at your shirt, this has a 5/8 inch hem. but I don't want a 5/8 inch hem, so I'm just gonna add 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch. And we're gonna do 1/2 inch all the way around. This is how you true your patterns and add seam allowance. Again, right angles on the corners always. Okay. All right, let's do the other side. Okay, you always want to label your patterns. So before I run off to go do something else, or if you're working on this and you need to do something, you can lose your pattern pieces and you don't want that to happen. So this is a center back, and then we're gonna label this. Okay, so this is gonna be back shirt. Okay, and now we can do the other side. Okay, we're going to do the front now. If you don't have a tracing wheel, you could just use pins. So you could take a pin and then just kind of puncture where the seam is on the shirt. I almost think this might be more accurate because the t-shirt is so thick folded this way. When you start putting the wheel through it, it takes the fabric with it and it can distort it a little bit. So I'm gonna do this side with just the pin. All right, and I'm just, like I said, I'm just taking a pin and poking where the seam line is. Okay. And doing it like this might take a little longer, but it might be a little more precise. Okay, and then still just going on the outside here. These are what I'm going about, maybe 1/2 inch. Doesn't really matter though, because you're just gonna draw your line anyway. Okay. And then right here. You know, you could almost just fold it from the front instead of doing the front and the back, because here you can see where both of the different necklines are. And then you can just save some paper and put the pattern on one, put both the front and the back on one piece of paper. But I want to show you how to true the pattern as well to make sure it's accurate. Okay, and that's it. I think I got all of it. You know what, I'm gonna go ahead and do it here for the back so that I can just compare it. And this is the seam line. So I'm marking this seam right here, not this line, this one. Actually, this is easier to see on the right side. That's good. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to draw out the pattern. Now we have our little dots. And they're a little harder to see because I didn't use a tracing wheel, but we got this. I can't find my ruler. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to start with the center front. And we're going to do a line of best fit here. Looks good. Okay. And then keeping with that right angle. This is the lowest dot. And that doesn't look very straight. So we're just going to bring it. Try to get as many dots in there. There we go. Oops. Okay, so you have your right angle. And another straight line is the shoulder. So let's see, I got a shoulder dot there. And another dot right at the end here. There we go. And then I have the corner right here. Another corner right here. Corner here. Corner here. Then if I want to add the back, we'll just extend this line to the top. Okay, and then I'm going to do my right angles. Pinch the back. And this will be the right angle. That. And French curve. Okay. That. I'm not liking this one. This curve looks a little funny, but we'll true it up in a minute. Okay, that's good. All right. Sleeve time. All right, so for the sleeve, I did the same thing. I folded it in half. So I take the hem, fold it in half, and then I use this to start to just kind of take out all the wrinkles and make sure it's laying nice and straight. So this is going to be my guide for my straight line and my grain. Okay. I'm just going to put my pins here. If you notice, there's a big difference in the arm side curve. Then you can do a front and a back. So you can trace this and then flip it over, or kind of feel for it, and you can kind of feel if it's a little bit different. But honestly, most t-shirts in factories are just cut on fold, and then they're put on top of these layers and layers and layers of fabric, and then a big machine is used to cut them, and it totally distorts the original pattern anyway. So you'll notice it's probably not super straight, unless it's a really nice t-shirt that you paid more money for, that was actually made with more quality. But that's a subject for something else. Okay, so I am going to use my tracing wheel for this, and then I'm just going to trace right along the edge of the fold. Okay, and then I'm going to mark the top, because this is where I'm going to do a slight little right angle to help me draw the arm side. Okay, so I'm just going to go like this. And here I'm going on the inside because there's seam allowance. On this side there is no seam allowance because it'll be cut on the fold. And that should do it. So let's take these out. All right, cool. And then let's draw this. So I'm gonna draw my straight line and my right angle. And you can see the dots here. I draw my line up best fit. It does become a little hard for me to see this here too, so let's see. There we go. Good. And this can just be a straight line. Do a little bit of a right angle here just to help me draw. Same over here. Okay, now I'm going to take my French curve. These are such a joy to draw. And then this part. There. And you do a kind of finagle with the ruler sometimes just to get the curve just right. There we go. All right, so now let's draw pattern markings. I'm gonna name this my TikTok shirt. TikTok shirt. This is a medium, and this is the sleeve. Okay. And I'm gonna add 1/2" seam allowance. And I think I did 1/2 inch for everything. I'm gonna do 3/4 inch for the hem because I do like a little bit more room there. Okay. Cool, that looks good. Okay, so now we have our pattern pieces and we're going to true them up. Make sure the shoulder seams match, the side seams match. Yeah, show you how to do that. So always label your pattern pieces, whatever it is you want to name them, if you want to give them a pattern number, whatnot. But you also say how many you want to cut 1 on fold, and I like to put the 1/2 inch, whatever my seam allowance is, on there. Okay. Good thing to have handy is tape, and it's that tape that you can write on. On your necklines, you want to add 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Okay, now I'm going to make sure the shoulder seams and the side seams match, and I'm going to start with the shoulder seam. So what you want to do is line up your arm size and the shoulders on the seam line. And for this one, I have to turn, the way I traced it, I have to turn one over to make sure that these match the arm size here, okay? Yeah, so I'm gonna fold this over, and I'm gonna match the lines, the seam lines. And they actually match pretty good. See, so here you can see the curve for the neckline. This is the front, this is the back, and the arm side. Actually, let me, okay. So what I'm gonna do is take a little piece of tape, and I'm gonna put this right there, and basically at both ends. So what you do here, it matches, so we're good there, but you'll notice that this curve looks a little funky. So I'm going to take my French curve, and I'm just gonna clean it up a little bit. a little bit. See how pointy it is? Like, there, that looks better there. And over here. I can see my line here. When you trace your pattern, you can do one this way, the back or the front, and then you're supposed to line them up. But the way I did it, one worked out upside down, so, or whatever, it still works. So now that it's all lined up and pretty, then I can go ahead and finish adding the seam allowance to my arm side. So to this, I'm gonna add the 1/2 inch. My ruler's backwards, there we go. So I'm just adding this here. And then over here, remember we have a right angle, okay? Just true that up there. Okay. Oh, and then you do the same here, but this one doesn't look so bad. The curve looks okay. And you go by the seam line, not the... You know what happened here? I didn't do the right angle on the front. But I'm not liking my curve. This is the back curve, this is the front curve. The back one didn't turn out as nice as it did when I actually traced the back. So here you do pretty much the same thing I just did on the arm side. And this one looks good. I'm just gonna leave that one that way. Okay, so let's move on to the side seam. Okay, real quick about the tape. It's really cool because it just comes right off. Yeah. Okay, let's true the side seam. So I haven't done seam allowance here. And my back is pretty much ready. And what we're going to do is match up the back or the back side seam with the front side seam. Okay. But what we're going to do is walk the pattern. And if I didn't have seam allowance here, it'd be a little easier, but it's all good. Okay, so there we go. Actually, I could do it now. Okay, so I'm gonna go this way and then just kind of match up the line. It's curvy, so it's not super easy to do, but I'm just matching up the line here. Okay, and the back came out to be 3/8 of an inch longer than the front. So I'm just gonna make the front 3/8 of an inch longer and we should be good to go. So I'm gonna take my ruler. And I decided that I want a 1 inch hem allowance. So I'm gonna add another inch to that 3/8 that I just added. All right, and now I'm gonna just connect the lines. Back and the front arm. All right, so let me just zoom out there. Okay, so match up the side seam, walk the pattern. If they match, awesome. They probably won't though, so just add the difference to whichever side was shorter. And then add whatever you want your hem to be. And I'm going to change this because I had done 1/2 inch. And then you want to add your seam allowance to the side seam, and that I'm going to do the 1/2 inch. Like what they teach us in school is 1/2 inch, but if you want to do a 1/4 inch, go for it. Or 3/8 of an inch. It's your pattern. Do what you want. It's all good. I went to compare the back piece that I copied on its own to the front piece where I added the back neckline to. And I don't think that's a good idea because in comparison, you can see that like it's a lot different. It's a lot different, the back. So I think it would definitely affect the fit. So I'm going to erase all of this and just go with the front. And just have a separate pattern piece for my front and my back. You're going to need to measure a few things once you have everything trued and cut out and ready to go. One thing you should do is check your arm side length and compare it to the curve on the sleeve. So this measuring tape is great because it has all of the fractions laid out for you. So it just makes counting super easy. So I measured the front and the back, added it up, and compared it to the measurement of the sleeve. So my sleeve was 9 inches, but it's on fold, so that gives me 18 inches for my sleeve. And the front and the back combined of my shirt arm size was about 17 3/4. So that's close enough. I'm not going to stress about it, especially since it's a t-shirt. They could write a book about sleeves and arm size, and it can get super complicated. But it's knit fabric, and we're going to roll with it. But it's good to be within about a 1/2 inch or so. Yeah. And you're going to take measurements, measure the neckline on the front and the back so that we can figure out the neckband. So take this measurement and this measurement, multiply them by 2, and add them together. And we're going to use that to figure out the length of our neckband. Okay, so take your shirt and measure the width of your neckband. So for mine, measure it, and it is 1 inch. 1 inch. So I'm going to write that down. The width is 1 inch. Okay. Then I'm going to take the measurement for my actual neck opening, and for me it ended up being 24 inches. Okay, it ended up being 24 inches, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to multiply it by 85%. Okay, so I'm going to take 24 times 0.85, and that's going to give me 20.4 inches. All right, so I like to do it this way. So usually 85 is good, but then I take the average of 85 and 90%. So 0.9 times 24 is 21.6. So then I'm going to take that plus 20.4 divided by 2, which gives me 21. Okay. So that is going to be the length of my neckband. So it's going to be 21 inches long, 1 inch wide, plus we're going to add seam allowance to all of that. So it's actually going to be double the width of that. You can put that on fold. Okay, but I don't like to put it on fold, so I am going to do just one big rectangle. And I'm going to use those measurements to create my neckband pattern piece. Okay, here's the neckband piece. So the width of my neckband was 1 inch it included a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I added a 1/4 inch to each end of the neckband. And I just folded the paper, and that allowed me to do the whole pattern piece. So you want to make sure that this direction of the stretch goes across the length of your neckband. Okay, and that's it. All right, now you're done. You have all your pattern pieces. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Please bookmark it, follow me, and leave me a comment. And have an awesome day. Make a whole bunch of shirts, and they'll fit you perfectly because you copied your favorite shirt. Yay!